Okay. Cool. So, yeah, for those who will be watching recording, we'll talk about how we can add Redux to our components, how to give access to the state, how to give access to dispatch some actions, how to add provide the store itself to the whole app. And yeah, at this point, we going to talk about asynchronous actions in Redux. So Redux in itself is synchronous. It cannot do, for example, requests, some resolve some promises, do some timeouts and stuff like that. It just can't because of its nature. So in order, but for example, on click on the button like we created here, like we did here, we sometimes want to, for example, request some data, like load more button, for example, on some website with pictures, for example, to load that data in chunks and allow user to load more data and click on this button. So we actually, most of the time, want to do some asynchronous actions inside of Redux. But Redux is synchronous, so how we can do that? And this is where asynchronous different libraries come in hand. So here, example of 3 most popular: Redux Sync, Saga, and Observable. So they basically provide you with different options to postpone send of your actions, basically. So Redux Thunk is the most simple of these 3. And if you feel that your home task is quite complicated for you, or you don't feel comfortable with Redux yet, I will definitely recommend using this one because it's simple. It's simpler than the 2 next libraries, so give it a go. It would be more simple. So basically, Thunk, apart from Redux, it's just a function that will return another function for you, just like postponed action, stuff like that. So here, everything that Redux Thunk allow you to do is to create function that would be postponed. So here, here is our action creator, the thing that will return our action, some name. We want to dispatch it, but we want to do it in after 1 second. So here, with Redux Sync, we can just create a wrapper around our asynchronous action that will return a function that will get dispatched. So this function will be called here. We just get another wrapper before this function that will get dispatched. Simple as that. Let me just show you the example in my repository. This might be a bit complicated. So this is basically all about the syntax of how you create your syntax of how you create your basically already not already action creator, but Thunk, as we use action creator in Thunk. Give me just a second. I've got my password. Okay, I cannot remember my password. Anyway, this repo is open. I don't really need to go on my account. So repositories, and I need to do React to do. So as you can see here, action creators are separate things that we usually call if we need some synchronous actions to happen. So if we want to, for example, get some data from again from the backend and use some access stuff, we'll create thunks. That is function that return a function with dispatch, and this function get to do's will be used in the component, same as it was with the action creator, but in a bit different way. Just a bit different syntax will be presented for you. Not here. To do this probably here. So as you can see here, I am again creating maps dispatch to props. I import my thunks from my file, and I simply add them to my function. So now this thunks will get access to the dispatch that they get in arguments. They now become proper thunks for our Redux, thankfully to the library Redux thunk. So as you can see, I don't use here Redux thunk library itself, it just integrates. So now we'll get all these functions in my properties here, get to do's, and all I need to do is just call it. Where is it? Where is it? Here. Yeah, use effect. On the mount, get to do's will be called. Simple as that. As you can see, if I want to pass something, to postpone it, to do it on click or on some live component lifecycle event, I'm free to do this and work with it as a simple function. Yep. So again, in the previous lecture, if you saw the ending, I told you to ignore for now apply middleware thing in this example here, store index file, this one. So I created some middleware and did something. So as I showed you already, we don't need to add anything directly in component from thunk. We don't need to add anything directly in our store. In reducer or an action from thunk. Only place where we need to add our library, integrate it, is our index file, the place where we create our store. Thunk and all libraries that are presented will be a middleware. So basically something that will happen before some actions here. So here, thunk would be called before every action. This is how you add it. You in create store in the second arguments, you pass apply middleware function that was called with your middleware. If you want to add multiple middlewares, you're free to do that. Apply middleware, get multiple arguments, so you can just create your array of middlewares and just spread it and apply middleware. So that's not interesting, some source code. So yep, about this too. If you want to, if you're feel comfortable with React, Redux, and stuff like that, maybe you already did something on Redux or you just craving some knowledge, I would recommend you going with Redux Saga, but only if you're comfortable with it, if you're 100% sure, so because it will definitely slow you down if you're not ready. But this library is mostly used, at least I saw it being used mostly on a real production project. This React Tank is a little bit more simpler, though again, you can see it in real production project. It's just my experience. With Saga, Saga gives you more possibilities. So if Redux Tank just allows you to do asynchronous actions, just postpone some actions, Redux Saga allows you to subscribe call of one action when another is called and stuff like that, to watch your actions, everything like that. Yeah, but it's a bit more complicated from understanding and learning curve point of view. It uses under the hood generators. Again, if you don't know about generators, it won't be a big problem. You don't really need to know this in depth, but again, keep that in mind. Might be a bit complicated, but you'll be more ready to the production work, stuff like that. So the decision is yours and consequences also will be yours. Let's move to the more advanced section of the Redux, even more advanced. So so yeah, in the React lectures, we briefly talked about stateful and stateless components, or presentational and component and container, presentational and container component, smart and dumb component. It's all the same things, just they call differently. So under the hood, in a nutshell, presentational components are dumb components. They needed only to give some UI to the user to allow them to see something. They don't have any logic. They read data only from props. They cannot change any data. They can only invoke some callbacks from props. For example, if we want to change some state of the parent component from the child. Yep. This is a presentational components, just containers, just components, stuff like that, dumb components. And if you work with class component, these components usually would be functional. Container components are smart components. They contain some logic. They know about Redux. They are subscribed to Redux state, can dispatch actions, stuff like that. They not always generated by React Redux. You can create them by your own, on your own. You usually get some data, for example, as here. Yeah, I already left this component. So as you saw in my to-do component, to-do list component, it's on user fact on mounting of this component, it gets some data. Then again, it creates some list, stuff like that. So it's connected to the Redux. This can be considered as a smart component because it at least connected to does something on the mounting. It requests some data again. And as you can see, it doesn't really have any complicated UI. I just reuse different component that already will do something. And if we look at to-do item, this would be considered a presentational component. It doesn't use any components inside, though presentational component might be But yet again, as you saw, container just used a different component to create some UI. Presentational component would mostly use real elements or just combine some different presentational component in a certain way. Again, this is possible. So here we do not do any request. We just get some callbacks from props. I said here, involve callbacks from props. We can toggle and delete items. So again, this component doesn't know really what is that, what this component, what this functions are. It just invokes them on a click. Dummy component. So again, considering that you don't want to allow every component to access Redux. Mostly we try to give access to the Redux to smart components. Yet again, you might face with the problem of prop drilling in this situation, so be smart about it. Maybe in some component you need to give this access to the store, just because how long should props go in the tree to get to this component? So this is really conditional. To the proofs of defining the Flux action object Redux saga. Yep. So when we talk about creating Redux entities like action store and stuff like that, there are certain rules. And Redux action won't be an action if it doesn't have type. It don't have to have payload. It can be just an action that will trigger another action, as it will happen. Sorry. As it will be easy to do, for example, if we work with Redux Saga. For example, if your action is an error action, you might consider adding error or meta and stuff like that. But this, again, optional. The two things that we must always remember, that action is an object, not a function, not a class or stuff like that. It's an object, always with a type. Yep. So sorry. Yep. So if we talk about creating an object, the basic structure of the action would be type and payload. Inside that, we would store something. Though if we want to spice it a bit, for example, if we want to add some action that will return error, or just, for example, we added handler to the to our backend request, and it returned with, for example, 400 or 502, some sort of an error. We want to handle the situation most of the time, so that's how we can represent, for example, this sort of situation. Yeah, and in this case, when we want to sort of do different thing on different results from the backend, we might face with a situation like this, when we have multiple stages of an action, let's say like this. When we start an action, for example, to show some spinner, and two states of the end of the our request in this sort of case, success and error. So that might be a mess. Imagine doing this for every single action that will represent some request. We always would want to, most of the time, we would want to have at least two of these stages, sometimes the third one, like here. So To solve this, we can use library Redux actions that will do this for us. So as you can see here, we just use a function create action with the name of an action. Here it would be user request. That will create, sorry, just want to find a good example. Yeah, so that, okay, let's go from here. We'll use this function to create action creator that will return always as this type. Just simple as that. Also, this library can be used to create things like that, start, success, and error, to add this sort of stages to your component. I just don't think I have a example, unfortunately, for that. So if you want to do that, you're free to go, though, again, it's on you. So this also, yeah, we also can, if we don't want to use, to create our own reducer, write this sort of a switch all the time, for example, for different parts of a store. This might be annoying. We might want to use again some library like handle actions to create reducer from object. But again, it's nice to know that we can do that, though I won't recommend doing that just because it's nice to practice work under the hood. But again, remember, if you really want, you can add it to your pet project, for example, or rewrite later your Helm task using all of these fancy libraries. So yeah, here we import handle actions from Redux actions as well as a create action. We created few actions. We now can use add to do and remove to do as the action creators, but as names of the actions in this handle actions object in order to create to manipulate state on these actions. Boop, not interesting. Computing derived optimization reselect. Yeah, again, we've talked on a previous lecture about benefits of creation of the selectors from the store. Let me just quickly show this for someone who haven't seen this. So stuff like that, these functions will be later reused in map state to props when we want to fetch certain data from the store. So in order to simplify this a little bit, you can use create selector from reselect library. It will allow you to use selector that you already used, for example, combine them somehow and stuff, different cool stuff like that. So here you can see I created get visibility filter selector from state and get to do selector. They are simple, they don't need create selector, but get visible to do's selector is a little bit more complicated. So I might want to add some logic here, though again, I won't recommend doing this particular one. If you really need to combine two selectors in more simple one without the switch and filter and stuff like that, leave all of this actions to the reducer. You can still use create selector, but just, for example, to simple if statement. So if some toggle is on from state, then do this, just so you reuse selectors that you already created in new selectors. That allow you to kind of have only one instance of the selector. And again, if you would want in the future to change the name of the property where you store the data, or change the place of the data in the store, that would be easy. You would need to do this only here, and this function already get it from the selector, so you won't need to worry about future problems with selectors, with with map state to props and stuff like that. Just again, single source of truth. Yep, so here, as you can see, example, we created our selector, we imported from our files with selector, and we simply use it in map state to props in order to get state. Props, we might pass them, might not, we don't always need them. So this libraries will, from here to the end, will simplify your work with Redux. Though, again, this is a more advanced section of the Redux, I will recommend you to start, let's say, barefoot, just with try to implement everything without any helping hands from libraries and stuff like that. Just learn things, how they implemented on its own, and then go a little bit further, understand how it works, how this libraries works and stuff like that. Because again, on the project, we do use these libraries. In your project, in your in your home task is really much more simpler than production project. So you won't need to these libraries most of the time. Sometimes even using them would be more complicated than doing stuff on your own. So again, this is just for your own knowledge and education. You can add them in your pet project when you're done with home task. So here we finish with the Redux. And again, I'll ask you if you have any questions. This is a nice time to ask them about home task maybe. We can discuss, try and fail, do a demo again. Nothing would work, but I'm happy to be here and help you anyway. Cool. So let's go with the home task question then. These categories from drop-down list, where do they have to come from? Okay. So for those who will be watching recording, let's just confirm. So the question is about this point. So where should these sources come? Am I right? Okay. So let's go to the news API and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So again, they come from the API, and there is a specific call for this category. So if you go to the documentation tab, you should go to the endpoints sources. And basically, this is the request you want to do for your categories. As you can see, it will return you different houses, publications, news sources, stuff like that. And you'll use the IDs to fetch your list of news later from this data. So answering your question, it comes from this request to our API. Cool. I'm happy to help. So yeah, you can see here how what options you can what query parameters you can add, and again, API key is required. Everything else is optional. So another one. What should the default main page display? So before you load the list of items, you mean? Let me just. So that's one option. So basically, no one selected anything yet. None of the sources were selected yet. So this is one way to do this. Another one, on load of the page, on the first load of the page, you pre-select the first option from the sources and show the first and show list of news from the source. Basically, you can do this like that. This might be a bit more complicated though, but more interesting. Okay. Yeah, so basically our starting point would look like that. I can't use Yaslint and Husky on my PC. What's the problem? Can you describe a bit more? How come? And there is a client library for Node.js. Can that be used, or we should build fetch requests with template string? But you, okay. There is a client library for news API. Okay. I would recommend going with something like something less specific for this current API, like maybe just go with Axios, or if you want with fetch from latest yes something. But yeah, wouldn't recommend using the library for news API directly. I use work PC and admin change security settings, so it's disabled. Okay. Yeah, that sucks. That's not cool. I guess okay, but just I don't know, do you have mentors that check your home task or something? Or I guess you should have, yeah. Yeah, so basically just state this to your mentor, so he don't take away your points. But yeah, you can do this later on, when, for example, when you're finished, maybe you have access to non-working PC. If you can, if you're not, just deal with this with your mentor, basically. I'm okay with that. That's a good reason to not do ESLint. Speaking of ESLint, should we configure Airbnb style? I believe yes. If you go with Create React App, you should it should have under the hood Airbnb. Though again, I don't want directly to sorry. Don't want directly you to say that, hey, use Airbnb and stuff like that. I would recommend you just Googling some nice React specific configuration for ESLint. See what Create React App already gives you, and how we can improve this a little bit. So stuff like that, because there are, oh no, not this one. Because there are a lot of different articles about this thing. I saw multiple different nice configurations, more simple, more strict, however you like your life with this Helm task to be. So like that. So answering your question, you can, but you don't oblige to configure Airbnb. It's your decision. But I'd recommend go as strictly as you can. Okay, thank you for your questions. Maybe someone else have any questions? One more lecture on Thursday. Yeah, we have one more lecture. Probably we'll talk about React testing, maybe cover deployment, all different kind of things, not connected directly to the React components, Redux and stuff like that, more of a infrastructural sort of things. Probably I'd like to talk with you about testing. So so you have to do the Helm task. Yeah, so yeah, stuff like that. Maybe we'll talk about, if you have time, we'll talk about server-side rendering, stuff like that. So if you don't have questions, thank you guys for being here today and have a nice end of the day. Bye-bye.
Илья.
Ага, здравствуй.
Привет. Как тебе лекция? То есть, я так понимаю, мне надо быстро добить то, что там те курсы как-нибудь.